In early 2025, I found a photograph buried deep in a Dubai property forum. It never trended. The mainstream media missed it, but this image exposed something far worse than any headline. The rotten underbelly of a Palm Jumeirah villa. We are not talking about the shiny facade facing the sea or those gorgeous infinity pools. This is the part they hid from us. Just cracked concrete, rusty steel, and water leaking through joints built to last forever. Except these structures are barely 20 years old. So let us look past this single ruined villa. What happens when Dubai's ultimate futuristic playground starts rotting faster than the marketing team can spin it? The Palm Jumeirah was never supposed to look this sad. Back in 2001, developers pitched it as something far beyond mere luxury. Dubai had luxury covered. What they needed was a physical miracle they could actually sell. Enter the developer, Nakheel. They built an artificial archipelago right in the super salty waters of the Arabian Gulf, a place engineers call a corrosion nightmare. Think boiling temperatures, crazy salt levels, and sea life eating away at concrete. It is a brutal recipe for rapid decay. But did that stop them? No. They dredged sand from the ocean floor, sprayed it, and compacted it with heavy vibrations. And just like that, they had the foundation for the most famous real estate project on the planet. When the first wave of buyers moved in around 2006, the hype was instant. Billionaires from Moscow, Manchester, and Mumbai started throwing cash at it. They were not just buying beachfront villas. They bought into the myth that this man-made island was indestructible and could only go up in value. During the peak madness of 2007 and 8, tiny plots of sand traded at prices that defied all financial logic. The whole market ran on pure storytelling, built on the wild assumption that rich people would never stop wanting it. People actually believed the fairy tale. By 2022, the Palm was breaking records with some of the most expensive home sales in Dubai history. We are talking about a single penthouse selling for 302 million dirhams, roughly $82 million back then. That insane price tag cemented its status. Even the elite Knight Frank Wealth Report ranked the Palm among the world's top 5 neighborhoods in 2023. It looked invincible. It looked like a rocket ship. But fast market growth does not always mean strength. Sometimes it is the final gasp before a crash. And the first warnings did not make the news, they hid in the data. Let me tell you, disasters start quietly. Not with a sudden collapse, but with a tiny drift that only shows up when you compare the numbers. I looked at the official Dubai Land Department records and private market data. Average prices on those famous palm fronds actually peaked in mid-2023. Since then, the numbers have been quietly sliding downhill. Now, this is not a sudden crash like the ones that wrecked Dubai in the past. It is something weirder. A slow decoupling from the rest of the luxury market. Experts at ValueStrat point out that for the first time in over a decade, the Palm is losing the race to other luxury neighborhoods. Neighborhoods like Dubai Hills, Jumeirah Bay, and downtown Towers all beat the Palm in growth throughout 2024. The crown jewel of Dubai real estate is officially getting dusty. But prices are only half the story. The occupancy records are much harder to ignore. A close look by a local platform in late 2024 estimated that roughly 22% of these villas are completely empty. No full-time owners, no tourists booking them, and zero basic maintenance. They are just sitting there, rotting in the sun. We are looking at a 25% vacancy rate on what was supposed to be the most exclusive address in the Middle East. Let that sink in. This is not some rare exclusive club. It is massive supply sitting in limbo while the local infrastructure struggles. Traffic data shows key entry roads on the Palm are absolute gridlock nightmares. We are talking about the worst traffic in all of Dubai. And remember that traffic is terrible, even with a quarter of the island sitting empty. That points to a major design flaw. The developers simply built a road system that cannot handle the weight of their own ambition. If everyone actually decided to move, in the whole island's infrastructure would literally chalk on its own success. This is where the marketing fairy tale shatters. True luxury requires extreme scarcity. But the data shows we are looking at total market saturation. But the real danger is not just the price drop. It is buried deep underground, and time is running out. Remember, they built this thing by dredging ocean sand and shaking it together with massive vibrations. That is your luxury foundation. The engineering technique was old news, but doing it on this massive scale was a wild experiment. The Arabian Gulf is a brutally hostile environment for reinforced concrete. High salt boiling water and hungry marine life create a perfect storm that eats away at steel and concrete faster than normal. Even civil engineering experts warned years ago that structures in this region need serious repair work within just 10 to 15 years of being built. And many of these palm villas are hitting that exact deadline right now. Suddenly, your dream investment becomes a money pit. Because repairing an island sinking in salty water is definitely not cheap. With these fronds surrounded by water, even basic structural checks require a boat crew. Our investigation found engineering reports from 2023 revealing that diagnosing and repairing these sinking seaside villas costs 3 to 6 times more than standard onshore homes. That is a massive premium for a view. It is a massive financial nightmare that definitely was not in the sales brochure. And guess what? Neither the developer Nakheel nor the Dubai government is picking up the tab. The bill lands squarely on the buyers, exposing a massive gap between flashy marketing and the brutal reality of long-term maintenance costs. The glory was shared globally, but when the foundation cracks, you are strictly on your own. This is exactly where you and I see the original fantasy crumble. The entire project was engineered on the assumption that buyers would actually live here, pay attention, and constantly fund repairs. Instead, a massive chunk of these buyers treat these multi-million-dollar villas like glorified savings accounts rather than actual homes. They are totally absent. Repairs are completely ignored, but the harsh saltwater environment does not care about an investor's busy schedule. The ocean does not respect an empty house. Slowly, this quiet war between nature and neglect begins to rot the foundations. You won't see it on the property listings, but it is eating the structures from the inside out. But this crisis doesn't hit everyone the same way. It divides the island into distinct classes depending entirely on how deep your pockets are. At the very top are the ultra-rich billionaires who dropped $80 to $100 million on custom mega mansions along the crescent. For these guys, crumbling foundations are just a minor annoyance. They have full-time staff, constant inspections, and deep-pocketed repair crews fixing things before a single crack even shows up. With unlimited cash, a hostile ocean is just an annoying budget line item, not an actual threat to your home. In fact, some of them even see this as a business opportunity. Slightly falling prices next door just mean perfect opportunities to buy up more land. But right below these billionaires lies a far more vulnerable crowd. These are the owners who paid between $2 and $5 million, expecting a peaceful retirement retreat, a steady rental income, or a cozy seasonal vacation home. This group does not have a massive margin for error. A surprise repair bill of $400,000 isn't just a minor headache. It is a total financial disaster. Many are absentee owners trusting property managers who only care about quick rental payouts, completely ignoring the slow-motion destruction of the actual building. That is a quiet but deadly trap. They cut maintenance to protect their profits, while brand new developments off the island offer far better options. These newer places have better roads and fewer structural nightmares for the exact same price. Buyers are slowly running away from older properties that hide expensive, soggy secrets. The house won't literally fall into the ocean today, but selling it, managing it, or even justifying it becomes a total nightmare. Then we have the third class, the people you never see in those glossy investment brochures, but who actually keep the entire island running. These are the cleaners, guards, and maids who make massive daily commutes from Deira and Bur Dubai. They send money back home to families across Asia, all while dealing with crushing local costs. A prominent housing report from 2024 shows that since 2021, transit costs for these workers spiked 18%, while their actual rent jumped by 30%. But their wages aren't going up. In fact, panicking property owners are cutting back on their pay to save cash. It is not a sudden wave of firings. Instead, it is death by 1,000 cuts, reduced hours, unrenewed contracts, and cheaper labor. Slowly, the island's luxury shine begins to fade. Not all at once, but in tiny, almost invisible ways as the maintenance staff is slowly gutted. This is the massive paradox you and I are uncovering here. The Palm absolutely requires world-class, non-stop upkeep to survive, yet the economic system actively encourages everyone to cut corners. Ultimately, the island is slowly starving itself of the exact care it needs to stay afloat. This bizarre problem goes far deeper than bad engineering or simple real estate market cycles. It is built into who owns it. The Palm was designed to be a permanent neighborhood, but everything about the local laws encourages people to just rent and run. Buying property in the Emirates doesn't get you a passport or give you a say in managing the island. Even if you drop a cool $10 million on a villa, you still have absolutely zero power over how maintenance budgets are spent. You just get a 10-year visa tied to your investment, leaving you fully responsible for costs, but totally powerless to make decisions. This creates a chaotic mix of owners from dozens of countries, all with totally different ideas about who should pay for repairs. Getting everyone to agree on anything is a total joke. Why would an investor pay for 30 years of seawall upkeep when they plan to sell their property and leave Dubai in 5 years? This conflict happens everywhere, but it is a ticking time bomb on the Palm, because the entire island's survival depends on absolutely everyone maintaining their connected structures in sync. If your neighbor ignores their foundation, yours rots too. One ignored leak stresses the entire system, but as you and I can see, nobody is actually in charge. Today, you and I are digging into a quiet crisis. The gap between what this asset needs and what owners deliver has been shrinking for years, long before the cracks showed. My investigation points straight to the paper trail. In 2024, Fitch Ratings flagged that Nakhil's parent company quietly ditched development income to focus on collecting boring community management fees instead. They stopped building the dream and started squeezing cash from what is left. That is not necessarily a crime, but the party is over. Growth becomes upkeep. Expansion turns into mere survival. When a hype-driven market relies entirely on endless construction to keep prices up, this slowdown raises massive red flags. It tells us that the golden era of printing money on the Palm is officially done. Now keeping investors happy means desperately trying to save what is already there. This is a completely different ballgame, demanding the kind of strict maintenance routines that the current chaotic ownership model simply fails to enforce. As a reporter, I have to be exact about this threat. The nuance changes the entire ending of our story. Relax. The Palm Jumeirah isn't physically dissolving. The massive engineering under there is still totally solid. No, it is not sinking into the ocean. The real danger is invisible and far more terrifying for anyone with money there. I am talking about that bloated price premium baked into every single transaction for 20 years. That hyperinflated markup justified not by actual rental yields or replacement costs, but by sheer hype, the fantasy of eternal demand and endless appreciation. And trust me, that luxury premium does not just pop overnight. It rots slowly in quiet corners that flashy headlines ignore, but you can see it in the widening gap between hype and harsh reality. We have seen this movie before in Dubai. After the 2009 crash, some home prices plummeted over 60%, leaving half-built projects completely abandoned. Yet Dubai bounced back, forcing its wild housing market to grow up and get professional. The Palm rode that wave of recovery, and there is still a slim chance it could pull off another miracle. If authorities actually enforce mandatory repair fees, clamp down with regulations, and serve up a government-backed rescue plan, they might just save this asset long-term. Sure, that could happen, but nobody in power is actually doing it, and the market is ignoring it. Instead, my investigation shows a massive split between corporate spin and reality. The brochures still sell the Palm as the ultimate peak of luxury, but the data shows a 20-year-old artificial island slowly rotting in saltwater, choked by cheap owners who skip out on basic upkeep. Yields are already starting to slip. So the real question is no longer whether the island will sink. It is what investors are actually buying when they sink cash here, because the fantasy and the actual concrete do not match anymore. And you and I can see that this gap isn't closing. It is widening slowly, quietly, until it's suddenly too late to get out. Two futures are warring for the Palm Jumeirah, and they might coexist longer than any investor thinks. In the first scenario, officials finally face the music and acknowledge the structural rot early. Repair work is strictly enforced and cash is pooled into mandatory reserve funds. Regulators finally find their teeth turning the island from a Wild West growth machine into a stable, managed income property. In that case, the premium survives. It drops a bit, resets and anchors itself to real utility rather than fairy tales. But there is a darker path playing out right now, where nobody changes their greedy habits and ownership remains totally scattered. Here, upkeep is ignored, and the crippling cost of saving the island falls on a few unlucky owners who cannot afford to pay. If that happens, the Palm won't go down in flames. It'll do something much sneakier. It will just slide deal by deal, year by year, slipping away from the top tier. No dramatic explosion, just a slow, painful slide into mediocrity. And that matters. A slow decline is hard to spot, impossible to fix in time, and only realized after the smart money has already fled. So the question isn't which path is realistic. Both are totally real. The million-dollar question is which future buyers are banking on today, because every single purchase is a high-stakes bet on one of these paths. Do we get a massive rescue mission or a slow, agonizing decay? Right now, my findings suggest that buyers are completely oblivious to the difference, which means the real danger isn't the concrete itself. It is you and I believing that this fairy tale will somehow last forever.